Hey, what's going on? My name is Henry and this is Breakable Program. Today, we're going to be going over some major news in Overwatch and other channel news. Jeff Kaplan made some huge announcements for this upcoming season. So this season is going to be a 2-month season instead of the usual 3. He explained that most players try really hard for the first few weeks of a new season, but by the time it gets to month 3, people are already worn out. Personally, this has been my experience as well for this season at least. With the shorter seasons, they are altering the way that competitive points are gained. Now, since the seasons are going to be shorter, they are decreasing the amount of competitive points that you receive at the end of the season. To compensate for this, they're going to be giving you more points per win, and this should make the amount of points you earn equal to what it was previous. A big change they are making are the control maps in competitive. In the past, they had a best of 5 system where you had to gain control of 3 points in order to win the game. Blizzard noticed that there was a disproportionate amount of games in this mode compared to the other modes. So now they are changing it to a best of 3 system. So instead of winning 3 points, you only have to win 2, just like in quick play. Their reasoning for this is that most times at the end of these long matches, it's extremely disappointing for the losing team to have sunk in sometimes even 40 minutes into a game just for a loss. They are also changing the way that you are placed after your initial 10 matches. In the past, they implemented a system where you were actually placed lower than what your placements indicated, and they did this so you can basically win your next few matches so you feel like you're accomplishing something. However, Jeff stated that this had the opposite effect. Instead of feeling good about the climb, players were disappointed that they didn't get placed in the SR they believe they deserve. So this season, you're going to be placed at the rank that you should be at after the 10 matches instead of artificially lowering your ranking. Speaking of ranking, they are changing the way that decay works for players who are in diamond and above. In case you didn't know, players in this rank have to play 7 games in a week in order to keep their ranking. If they fail to do so, they would lose 50 SR and have to climb their way back up. Blizzard did this so there wasn't a tendency for players who wanted to keep their ranking to stop playing once they reach their goal. They are still keeping decay, however, they are making it much less severe. Instead of 7 games in a week, they are changing it to 5, and rather than losing 50 SR, you now only lose 25. And if you are in these higher rankings, you might have noticed that the queue times are pretty long, and even after a long queue, you still might get placed in games that are clearly unbalanced. The Overwatch team is setting out to fix this as well. They changed matchmaking so that you are now placed in teams that are more balanced. However, the downside to this is that the queues are going to be longer. I'm not even in Diamond, so I never had to deal with this issue, but I would imagine that this is actually a positive change. If adding a few extra minutes to a queue meant getting a more balanced team, I would be okay with that. So probably more important than the changes coming to comp are the changes that are coming to the actual heroes. All these changes are currently in the PTR at the time of writing this episode, so let's go ahead and get into it. Orisa has a few minor changes. Her fusion driver's projectile speed has been increased by 20%, making it more reliable from range. Her protective barrier has also been increased by 20%, and the shape of it has been modified so enemy players are going to have a harder time hitting it from below. They're okay changes, not really anything exciting. Reinhardt is also getting a minor improvement. He can now look around while he has his shield up without moving his shield. So if you want to look at your left but you don't want to leave your teammate behind you exposed, you can now do that. Like I said, minor improvement, but it will provide better situational awareness in battles. Junkrat can now hold 2 mines instead of 1, and his rip tire speed has been increased by 30%, making it a much harder target to hit. I think most Junkrat players are going to be pretty happy about that one. Widow's grappling hook cooldown has been reduced from 12 seconds to 8 seconds, and that change actually makes her a lot more mobile. Also, now whenever you poison someone with your E ability, you can now see them behind walls. This wall hack is only visible to you, so it's not as powerful as your ultimate. Still positive though. Roadhog was significantly nerfed in the past patch, but now he's getting a buff. When he uses his breather ability, he now has a 50% damage resistance. Also, he can now move while using his breather, making him more of a tank than he was before. D.Va has gained a new ability, Micro Missiles. It's basically like a small fair ultimate that can be used in conjunction with any of her other abilities. Fusion drivers can now be combined with her booster abilities, letting her chase down low health targets while doing damage. Not all good news for D.Va though. They increased the rate of degeneration in her defense matrix by 2. This means that you will only have half the time to use it. Mercy has been reworked entirely. Resurrect is no longer her ultimate but an ability. Resurrect now has a cooldown of 30 seconds and can only be used on a single player within 5 meters. Her new ultimate is called Valkyrie. This resets the cooldown of your Resurrect and lowers the cooldown to 10 seconds. It also increases the range on the healing and damage boost and allows her to use Guardian Angel at an extended range. Valkyrie also gives the beam an ability to chain from one player to another, allowing Mercy to heal or damage boost multiple targets at the same time. The most powerful characteristic of her ability is granting her the ability to fly, as well as giving her blaster a higher firing rate and increased damage. Valkyrie lasts a good 20 seconds. So obviously the biggest change is the fact that you can no longer resurrect your team after a wipe. In fact, the fastest you can res 3 people is in 20 seconds if you res, then ult, then res, and then res again, making the resurrect a more strategic ability than it was before. I honestly don't know if they're going to push all these changes onto live because it's so drastically different from how you fundamentally play Mercy. We'll see what happens though. That's pretty much all the changes they are making to Overwatch. They are adding 2 new maps, Junkertown and Chateau Goliard, along with 2 new game modes, Team Deathmatch and my personal favorite, Free For All. 2 new shorts have also been added as well. Junkertown The Plan, which focuses on Junkrat and Roadhog's attempt to steal a bunch of gold, and the Rise and Shine May animated short, which shows the origin story of her endothermic blaster and spotlights a dark point in her backstory. I did also want to bring up some things that are going to be happening to the channel that isn't Overwatch related. We are currently ramping up production on a lot of videos. We're going to be putting out some Lawbreaker content as well as some other smaller indie games. Overwatch is still going to be the majority of the things we talk about, but we didn't want to limit ourselves to just one game. It's easy to fall into that trap. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and like and subscribe and whatever nonsense.